What started as one rapper switching up his jeweler in Houston, Texas didn't just stay low-key. It exploded into one of the loudest call-outs the hip-hop world had seen in years. That single move set off a chain reaction nobody expected.
I don't want to put some smile in my mind. I don't want no free. He wanted to give me some free that was way smaller than this. I don't want no free.
Ending with a full-on raid at one of Houston's most successful jewelry spots. The tension? Yeah, it's thick. So let's jump straight in. Coming out of a Houston flea market and rising all the way to the top of the rap game, imagine this. The same plug you trusted your whole career. The one who iced out your teeth, flooded your neck, stacked your wrist with diamonds every time you stepped out looking flawless. What if that guy wasn't giving you what you really paid for? Think about it. What if the jeweler you stayed loyal to for 20 years, the same name you shouted out in songs, the same store you hit before every major move, what if he had been playing you the entire time? That exact question hit the Houston hip-hop scene like a bomb in spring 2026, and people couldn't stop talking about it. And the one who lit the match? One of H-Town's most respected voices, a man who dropped hundreds of thousands thinking he built a solid, unbreakable bond with his jeweler. But this situation, it's deeper than money. This is a 20-year buildup ready to snap. It's about loyalty getting crossed, diamonds, real versus lab-made, and the shocking price gap between them. And what really happens when that long-term trust finally cracks. It finally cracks, right there on camera, for the whole internet to see. But before all that lands the way it's supposed to, before the call-outs start flying, before the fraud accusations, the receipts, the live streams, and everybody online picking sides, you need to know exactly who these men are and what they really built together. Because if you don't understand the foundation, you won't feel how heavy the scoot really was when everything came crashing down. So let's take it all the way back to the start. And that start? A flea market in Houston, Texas, around 1996. Born Dong Antoine in 1973 in Vietnam, the man who would later be known as the King of Diamonds didn't come from wealth, not even close. He grew up in a small rural village with no electricity, in a country still recovering from years of war, where opportunities were almost non-existent. The odds were stacked against him from day one. But what he did have? Something money can't buy. Real generational skill. Johnny Dang came from a line of jewelers. His grandfather and his father both mastered the craft. And from a young age, he was learning it the old school way. Hands-on, day after day, passed down through the family like a legacy you can't fake. That foundation became his real advantage. His father, a Vietnam War veteran, made the move to the United States in 1987. Then in 1996, at just 23 years old, Johnny left Vietnam, crossed over, and reunited with his family in Houston, Texas, bringing that skill, that hunger, and that legacy with him, ready to turn it into something massive. He landed in one of the most culture-packed cities in America with nothing lined up. No connections, no customers, no store, no reputation, just pure skill passed down from his family. And like a lot of real success stories, he started from the very bottom, not halfway, not close, dead bottom. Side by side with his brother, he was fixing broken chains and rings at a Houston flea market, pulling in about $100 a month. Yeah, $100. Keep that number locked in, don't forget it, because where this story goes next makes that number look wild. For 2 straight years, it was nonstop grinding. Every single day, building trust piece by piece, repair by repair, slowly getting his name out there. Then by 1998, Johnny Dang made his first big move, opening up his own spot, TV jewelry, inside Sharpstown Mall in Houston. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't some luxury hotspot, but it was his. And that meant everything. And inside that mall, during those early hustle days, he found a lane that nobody else was hitting the same way. Custom diamond grills. For anyone not fully tapped in, these are custom pieces worn over your teeth. A bold statement in hip-hop culture. But Johnny wasn't doing it basic. His designs were different. No painful tooth filing, no shortcuts, just detailed, high-level craftsmanship that stood out instantly. Clean, creative, and shining crazy under the lights. So when Houston rapper Paul Wall stepped into Johnny's shop and got his first custom grill, it hit different. The look, the feel, the whole experience had him hooked. By 2002, that moment turned into something bigger, a real partnership. One bringing elite skill, the other bringing major visibility. A perfect link-up between a master jeweler and a voice in the culture, And together, they started building something the whole industry couldn't ignore. A jeweler and a rapper with real connections, that combo turned into a straight cheat code. Through Paul Wall, Johnny Dang didn't just meet a few people, he tapped directly into the entire hip-hop world. And once that door opened even a little, it swung wide and never shut again. Because in this culture, a real cosign means everything. The streets pay attention and word travels fast. One look, one mention, one stamp of approval, and suddenly everybody wants in. That's exactly what happened. The clients started pulling up and the names, it looked like a full VIP list every single day. We're talking Kanye West, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Lil Wayne, Cardi B, Travis Scott, Gucci Mane, Migos, Rick Ross, Nicki Minaj, heavy hitters only. And every single one of those wasn't just a sale. It was promotion on another level. Every chain in a music video, every red carpet appearance, every Instagram post showing off a Johnny Dang piece, that was marketing money can't buy. His work started popping up everywhere. Nelly's Grills, Beyonce's No Angel, Soulja Boy, Gucci Mane's Gucci bandana, his fingerprints were all over the culture. Then, in 2023, it went even crazier. A whole song dropped called Johnny Dang by that Mexican OT featuring Paul Wall. A full track named after him? That's not normal. That's legacy status. You don't get that kind of spotlight unless you're deeply locked into the culture for real. And he didn't just ride the wave, he kept leveling up, always innovating, always pushing forward. From invisible baguette settings to being one of the first to really push emerald cut grills into the spotlight, Johnny stayed ahead by doing what others couldn't. He kept raising the bar on what custom jewelry could look like in hip-hop, and the game had no choice but to follow. He even kept a full VIP grill wall, stacked with tooth molds from celebrities. Every piece stayed personal, no matter how big things got. And trust, the business didn't just grow, it blew up in a major way. By 2016, Johnny Dang leveled all the way up, opening a massive 16,000 square foot flagship store on Richmond Avenue, right by Houston's Galleria. Over 70 employees, multiple retail spots, and full in-house production. This wasn't just a shop anymore, it was a full operation. Custom pieces ranging from $1,000 all the way past $200,000. What started as $100 a month at a flea market turned into what people would later call a $200 million empire, built from nothing but skill, patience, and straight grind. A man who came to the US with no shortcuts, just craftsmanship in his hands, and turned that into a name the whole culture recognized. That's a real success story, and Houston stood behind it heavy. Now, one person who had a front row seat to that rise and was putting serious money into it the whole time was Houston rapper Sauce Walka, born Philip Wayne. No long intro needed if you know the city. He's one of those figures who really came up from the streets into the rap game and stayed true to where he's from. And way before the fame fully hit, before all the features and attention, one of the first places Sauce was spending his money? Johnny Dang's shop. That connection goes back about 20 years. 2 decades of custom pieces, in-person deals, and real loyalty. Sauce wasn't just another client. He was one of Dang's most consistent and highest-paying supporters out of Houston. Not a tourist, not a one-time customer. This was day one loyalty for real. Sauce Walka wasn't just popping in for a quick purchase. He was locked in heavy, spending hundreds of thousands over the years. We're talking custom grills, chains, pendants, bracelets, the full lineup. There's even a well-known $500,000 Cuban chain in that history. $500,000 for one chain. A purchase so big it reportedly needed a bank transaction just to clear. And that's not all. There was also a $300,000 diamond ring bought separately after an incident in Memphis. That kind of spending? Yeah, he wasn't playing at all. He stood on that lifestyle. This wasn't some casual business deal either. This looked more like a brotherhood. 2 men building their names in the same city at the same time with real trust behind it. For 20 years straight, Sauce backed that loyalty with real money. If there was a hall of fame for loyal clients, his name would be right there at the top. No debate. But somewhere along those 2 decades, at least according to Sauce, something wasn't right. Somewhere deep in all that trust, all that money, something felt off. And the twist? The person who helped bring it to light wasn't some investigator or reporter. It was someone from the inside. A former employee who had worked under Johnny Dang and left the shop back in 2021, walking away with knowledge about what was really happening behind the scenes. His name? Plugged Geo. And the moment he crossed paths with Sauce Walka, everything shifted. That's when things started building toward the moment that would shake the internet. But before the blow-up, the live streams, the accusations, the viral chaos, you need to know exactly who Plug Gio is. Real name Jose Jota, known in the streets as Plug Gio or just Gio. This wasn't just some random ex-employee, far from it. Plug Gio was reportedly one of the key craftsmen inside Johnny Dang's operation, someone who was actually bringing in serious money before everything went left. According to reports, Gio stepped away in April 2021, and it wasn't a quiet exit either. There were talks of pay disputes, the kind of situation where someone leaves the shop, but takes all the inside knowledge with them. After that, Gio didn't slow down, he leveled up. He launched his own high-end permanent grill business, doing things his own way. And at some point, Sauce Walker caught wind of what Gio was really capable of. The size of the diamonds, the precision in the settings, and the way everything was handled with full transparency. And once Sauce started comparing Gio's work to what he had been getting from Johnny Dang over the past 20 years, things started looking strange. The numbers, the quality, something just wasn't lining up. Now here's the thing, the tension between Sauce and Dang didn't just appear overnight in 2026. This situation had already been brewing. There was a grill-related situation back in 2024 that sparked the first signs of friction between them. The smoke had been building quietly behind the scenes until late August 2024 when everything came out into the open in a way nobody in Houston's jewelry scene was ready for. Picture this, Sauce Walker revealing what he called the world's first permanent $1 million grill, a piece reportedly worth over $1 million loaded with more than 50 carats of high-grade stones. We're talking 3-carat and 1-carat diamonds set in rose gold, covering every single tooth. It sounded unreal. And the moment it was shown, it was guaranteed to take over the internet instantly. This wasn't just another flashy piece. This was a statement for the history books. A loud message that everything before it, not the standard anymore. The bar had officially been pushed way higher. And here's what made it even crazier. The grill was made by Gio, the same guy who used to work for Johnny Dang. Now in hip-hop, switching jewelers isn't shocking. It happens all the time. Artists upgrade, tastes change, new talent shows up, people move around. That's just part of the game. But Sauce Walker didn't make this move quietly, not even close. He didn't slide over to a new jeweler behind the scenes. He made it loud, public, and impossible to ignore. And right in the middle of it all, Johnny Dang's name was front and center. The way he said it made one thing clear. This wasn't just business. It felt personal. I'm gonna take out Johnny Dang's, put in the Gios. 6 words, but they landed heavy. And then he doubled down with the line everybody started repeating. We went from $100,000 to $1 million. That wasn't just talk. That was him setting a whole new standard in Texas, one he claimed nobody else could touch. But underneath all the shine, all the attention, there was something deeper going on. Because right after the big reveal, Sauce started hinting at the real reason behind the switch. He spoke on turning down a free piece that Dang had reportedly offered to keep his business. And that moment said a lot without spelling everything out. After 20 years and hundreds of thousands spent, Sauce wasn't looking for favors or handouts. He wanted what he believed he had been paying for all along. And now, he was claiming he finally found someone who could actually deliver it. And just switching grills alone would have already been a big story. But this situation, it was only getting started. The public call-out, the name drop, the whole upgrade from Dang angle, putting all of that on blast for the internet to see, that alone could have kept people talking for weeks. The culture would have debated it non-stop. But what really took this from regular hip-hop gossip to a full-on industry-shaking scandal was what came next. Not just the reveal clip, but the Instagram live sessions that went viral in mid-March 2026. That's when everything really exploded. Then the allegation dropped, and it was serious. Johnny Dang had allegedly been selling lab-grown CVD diamonds, chemical vapor deposition stones, as if they were natural VVS diamonds, charging full natural diamond prices too. And according to the claims, this wasn't just a one-time mistake or a mix-up. It was being framed as something that had been going on for a long time across multiple clients. We're talking rappers, celebrities, major spenders, people who trusted him with some of their biggest purchases. Now, if you're not deep into diamonds, here's what makes this situation hit so hard. Lab-grown CVD diamonds are chemically identical to natural diamonds. To the naked eye, and even with some basic tools, they can look exactly the same. You can't just look at it and tell the difference. And that's what makes the allegation so intense, because the price gap, it's huge. A 2-carat lab-grown CVD diamond might cost around $3,000 to $5,000 to produce. But a natural diamond of similar quality, that can go for $20,000 or more. That's a difference of around $15,000 on just one stone. Now multiply that across pieces selling for $50,000, $100,000, sometimes way more. That gap starts stacking into numbers that are hard to even process. And if those claims were true, it would mean clients were paying premium prices without fully knowing what they were getting, turning this into one of the most talked about situations the jewelry world had seen in a long time. Sauce wasn't calling this a mix-up or some minor mistake. He was calling it straight fraud. In his view, this wasn't a paperwork issue or a misunderstanding. It was being framed as a calculated move, where loyal customers paid top dollar for years based on trust, only to question later whether they really got what they were promised. And he didn't stop there. Sauce also put a very specific complaint on the table. He alleged that Johnny Dang was showing major love to out-of-town celebrities and big-name artists, giving out free pieces or deep promo discounts to boost visibility online. Meanwhile, according to Sauce, Houston's day ones, the people who had been supporting and spending with him for years, were paying full price while getting something far less valuable than expected. That part hit especially hard in the city. Houston loyalty getting treated like that in Houston? That's the kind of claim that stirs real emotion. And then Gio's name came back into the picture. The former employee who had reportedly brought in serious business before leaving after a pay dispute was said to have helped Sauce spot patterns that made him start asking bigger questions. Sauce also hinted that he had receipts. He pointed to blurry images and what he claimed were certificates that showed possible mismatches between the paperwork and the stones in the actual pieces. That detail gave the whole situation even more heat online. And here's the wild part. This wasn't even the first time Sauce had spoken on something like this. Back in 2020, he had publicly called out another major jeweler, Eliante, over similar claims involving CVD diamonds being passed off at much higher value. So to his supporters, this didn't look like random anger or attention chasing. It looked like somebody who believed he had been watching the same play happen again and again. With accusations this serious, you'd expect a strong response right away. The kind with documents, independent testing, and a detailed breakdown addressing every single claim head-on. But that's not exactly how it played out. Johnny Dang's main public response didn't really zero in on the fraud accusations themselves. Instead, it focused more on the disrespect, being called out publicly by someone he had worked with for 20 years. He spoke on standing by Houston, supporting families, and everything he built from nothing. He reminded people that he came up from the ground level, grinding from the moment he arrived in the US. And he made it clear, you can shop around the world. He also pointed out that he never gave Sauce a single free piece. Every transaction was business. It was a proud response, standing firm on his work and his story. But it didn't directly shut down the detailed fraud claims being pushed online. Now, when it came to the diamond conversation itself, Dang did address parts of it. As videos of diamond testers started flooding social media, he acknowledged that lab-grown and natural diamonds can look nearly identical to the eye. He even posted his own testing videos on TikTok, aiming to show transparency. He claimed his high-end pieces use natural diamonds and said his pricing is actually lower than many competitors. At the same time, he framed Gio's claims, circulating since 2021, as coming from a disgruntled former employee. But what people online were waiting for? A clear point-by-point response, backed by solid proof addressing each specific accusation. And that never fully showed up in public. When the internet feels like key questions aren't being answered, things move fast. And that's exactly what happened here. By March 2026, the situation had gone fully viral. YouTube reaction channels were breaking it down non-stop. TikTok creators were analyzing every detail from every angle. X and Twitter threads stretched into the thousands. Even Facebook groups turned into full debates where everyone had something to say. Nobody stayed neutral. One side argued Sauce was just upset, calling him emotional over switching jewelers and accusing him of using fraud claims to protect his image after ending a long relationship. But the other side, people who had been watching the jewelry game closely for years, came in with a completely different perspective, and they weren't quiet about it either. Now the conversation really split into two sides. You had people saying Johnny been finessing for years, while others pushed back hard. The debate came from every angle. Some were saying, lab diamonds aren't fake, but lying about them is the real issue. Others defended lab-grown stones as a completely valid option, as long as the buyer actually knows what they're getting. And that's where the real discussion sits, because this was never about whether lab-grown diamonds are real. They are. Chemically, they're the same, and they can look just as clean and flawless. What this whole situation comes down to is simple. What were you told when you paid? What did the receipt say? What did the jeweler promise you face to face? If someone paid for natural diamonds and believes they received something else, then the issue isn't the stone itself. That's a trust problem. Now, before going deeper, it's important to stay grounded on where things actually stand. As of March 24, 2026, there have been no lawsuits filed, no police reports, and no confirmed legal action made public. No independent lab has come forward verifying or testing the exact pieces being discussed. What exists right now is a public accusation. One man's claims, supported by a former employee's perspective, against another man's response. This isn't happening in a courtroom. It's playing out in public opinion. And in 2026, public opinion moves fast and hits hard. If any of these claims were ever proven true, the impact wouldn't come lightly. It would hit from all directions at once. Start with the brand itself. We're talking about clients who spent massive amounts, hundreds of thousands, even millions, on custom jewelry. Big names like Lil Wayne, Travis Scott, Beyonce. People at that level aren't just going to ignore it if questions start coming up, because those pieces aren't just accessories. They're part of their image, their brand, their presence in music videos and public appearances. If there's even doubt about whether those pieces matched what they paid for, that kind of situation could create serious pressure, and everyone would be watching how it plays out. If trust really breaks, that alone could shake the entire brand. Those high-profile cosigns, the celebrity shout-outs, the constant social media visibility, that's been the engine behind Johnny Dang's rise from day one. And if that engine stalls, the whole system slows down fast. But it doesn't stop at losing future clients. The damage could hit even deeper, right into the resale market. Because if existing Johnny Dang pieces start getting retested and come back labeled as lab-grown instead of natural, their value could drop heavy. For artists and collectors, those pieces aren't just for show, they're assets. Items they expect to hold value, something they can resell or liquidate when needed. Now imagine spending $100,000 on a chain, thinking it's top-tier natural diamonds, and finding out the stones are worth a fraction of that on the market. That kind of gap hits different. And when you multiply that across years of sales, across major clients, across what's been described as a $200 million operation, the numbers stop sounding theoretical real quick. Now take it a step further, into the legal side. If this situation ever moves from social media into an actual courtroom, there are multiple serious legal paths that could open up at once. Start with the federal level. If any of these claims were proven through independent testing, the Federal Trade Commission could step in over violations of its jewelry guidelines. And the FTC is strict about this. Lab-grown diamonds must be clearly disclosed. No confusion, no vague wording, no shortcuts. They've already warned jewelers in the past for not properly separating lab-grown from natural in how they market and sell products. And if violations are confirmed, the consequences can stack up fast. Financial penalties, public notices, and even restrictions that could seriously limit how a business operates moving forward. On top of that, clients in Texas could take it straight to court under the Deceptive Trade Practices Act, the DTPA. That law covers false, misleading, or deceptive business practices and misrepresenting the origin or value of diamonds. That's not just a bad look. It can carry serious consequences. We're talking actual financial damages, legal fees, and if it's proven the actions were done knowingly and intentionally, it can go up to triple damages. Triple. Now think about pieces selling for $50,000, $100,000, even $200,000 at a time, and then multiply that by 3. The numbers get serious fast, and it wouldn't just stop at 1 or 2 cases either. Individual lawsuits or even class actions could stack up, bringing claims like fraud, negligent misrepresentation, breach of warranty, and unjust enrichment. And history in the hip-hop jewelry space, it hasn't been kind to situations like this. When similar controversies have happened before, they've ended in massive settlements, businesses shutting down, and reputations taking hits that never fully recover. Those cases become examples people bring up every time a new situation pops off. Now, the most serious lane, the one nobody wants to see this reach, is the criminal side. That only comes into play under specific conditions, but if it ever does, things escalate quickly. If any evidence showed that diamond certifications or grading documents were altered or falsely presented to label lab-grown stones as natural, that could trigger criminal charges under Texas law for deceptive business practices. And it doesn't stop there. If transactions cross state lines or involved electronic communication, federal laws like wire or mail fraud could come into play. At that point, it's no longer just about fines or lawsuits. That's when the situation turns into something much heavier with long-term consequences. That's the kind of legal pressure that can shut everything down. Businesses collapse, reputations fall apart, and careers built over decades can disappear if fraud ever gets proven. It could even pull in the Texas Attorney General's office, bringing more fines, possible restitution, and strict rules like mandatory independent lab testing and clear origin disclosures on every sale. That kind of forced transparency would completely change how the custom jewelry game operates. But here's what really needs to hit, because this story is bigger than just Johnny Dang and Sauce Walker. This isn't just a Houston situation. What Sauce was pointing at, underneath all the energy, the $1 million grill, and the public callouts, was something deeper, something that's been part of the culture for years. In the hip-hop world, artists and celebrities spend huge money on jewelry, and most of the time, they trust their jeweler completely. No second opinions, no independent certifications, no extra checks. That's the code. You find your guy, you stay loyal for 10, 15, 20 years. And questioning that's seen as disrespect. But if these allegations were accurate, that same loyalty could be what allowed problems to go unnoticed. Because when you really look at the numbers, the margin is wild. A 2-carat lab-grown diamond might cost around $3,000 to $5,000, while a natural one of similar quality could go for $20,000 or more. If someone were to pass one off as the other and charge full price every time on chains, grills, pendants, across years of clients who never question it, that gap turns into serious money fast. And the only thing that could break that cycle, one person deciding to ask questions. In this case, that person was Sauce Walker. Now, no matter how this situation ends legally, it's already sparked something bigger. People are starting to talk about requiring GIA certifications, independent verification, and full transparency on every major jewelry deal. High-spending clients might start moving differently, only working with jewelers who can prove exactly what they're selling. And that kind of shift, it could shake an entire industry built on trust, relationships, and reputation. Even inside a business, pressure like this can hit hard. When allegations like these start circulating, it affects the whole operation. Skilled workers, the craftsmen, the setters, the people actually creating these pieces might not want their name tied to controversy. And if they leave, that impacts everything. Because at the end of the day, without the talent, it's just a building. Now here's where the story takes a turn not everybody expected. According to reports, Sauce Walker and Johnny Dang eventually met in person at a Houston community event and worked things out face to face. No lawsuits, no big press moments, no courtroom drama. Sauce even referred to Dang as a goat afterward, and it seemed like the tension between them cooled off. That says something about how things can get handled in Houston. Direct, in person, without dragging it out publicly. But here's the part that can't be ignored. That moment doesn't erase everything that already happened. The live streams are still online. The clips are still circulating. The breakdowns, the debates, the reactions, they're all still out there. Once something hits the internet, it doesn't just disappear. No handshake or conversation can fully remove those questions from people's minds. And the biggest question of all, it still hasn't been officially answered. No independent lab tests have been publicly released on the pieces in question. No verified documentation has settled things one way or the other. Right now, it's still one side's claims and another side's response, and the public watching closely. This story isn't finished yet. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can see it. And drop a comment below. What do you think really happened in this situation?